Hey my crafty creatures, thank you for tuning into this video. So for this video I wanted to make 3 different garments, and the 3 different garments I want to make are actually pretty simple. I wanted to take it kind of easy when I tried to do all of these projects in 1 week, and the 3 garments that I want to make are actually just using slightly different techniques, and they are all in like kind of different stages of like making garments. So the first thing I want to do is finalize the pattern for the square necked and curved hem shirt that I was working on. So the first thing I want to do is finalize the pattern for the square neck and curved hem tank top that I want to make. So with that, I have already made 1 mock-up and I've made some adjustments to that pattern. I think there's still a couple more that I need to make to that to get it like finalized, but I want to work on that and hopefully get the pattern finalized so that I know kind of like the steps that I should sew it in and all the pieces are exactly the way I want them to fit. So once I have that done, I want to move on to just making another version of a shirt that I've already made. So this one I've made it in the long sleeve, and now that it's getting a little cooler I want to go to the short sleeves. So I've already made one just kind of off camera just so I could kind of get an idea of, you know, what it looks like, because this is my first time doing the short sleeve version of it, and I like the way that came out, but I know that because of the fabric that I want to use for it, I'm going to have to make some adjustments, or actually I don't really know the fabric that I want to use for it. So I'm going to have to see what fabric I want to use, and I'm just going into my stash. I'm trying not to like buy anything. I'm trying to kind of work down my stash a little bit. That way I can actually make room for new stuff that I want to get in like later on in the year. But I want to make sure that the pattern is going to fit the way I want to, because I already have it like cut out to a specific size and I'm no longer that size. I want to be able to maybe add an extra ½ inch to it so that it'll fit me better depending on what fabric I use. So when I last sewed this up, I used a looser woven fabric, or not woven fabric, but a knit fabric. So it added a lot more stretch to it. So I was more careful with the way I sewed everything together for that. And it actually came out really nicely, and I want to make another version, maybe a couple of different colors, but for this week I'm just doing 1 more shirt for that. Oh, and the last thing I want to work on is kneeling the dress. Now I'm not sure what kind of style or design I want to go for it. I think I want to keep it kind of simple, but I'm not sure if there might be like a slight detail that I want to add in there to make it just look a little extra, for lack of a better word, spicy. I do have a few fabrics that I have in mind for that, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll be going through that whole process of me figuring out the design that I want to do, as well as making a pattern for it and choosing my fabric. So with all of that said and done, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get started on the first project. Alright, so here we have the top, and this is what it looks like on. Now, as far as the straps go, these are, I would say, just like ever so slightly a little too long. I did, when I made the pattern piece, I did make it a little bit longer. That way I could just shorten it as needed. But I think I might need to go a little bit shorter with this, just because of the way this fabric is. It definitely stretches a lot more than you would think it would. So with that, as far as where these straps sit, I don't like as much of that like side boob that I'm getting, so I'm bringing the side, the armhole, a little bit over more this way. So I've already made that adjustment on the pattern piece, but I haven't made the adjustment here. And what I'm thinking about doing is taking this curve and making it a little shorter here, and then curving it down more here into the front so that it hits roughly about here. But as far as the length of the side, I haven't decided if I really should take it down a little bit lower or not. I feel like this kind of hits at a good point. It's just more so the straps. I need to get the straps a little wider so that they sit about here. And I do have this little gapping here, so I don't know if I should just take it from the back so that it fits a little tighter, or if I should just go ahead and add a dart here, and then that would just cinch in that little area. But I think I should probably try the dart. I feel like that will give me the better fit than just trying to take it from the back and stretch it more. So that is where I am as far as the adjustments that I want to make to this first mock-up. But as far as, you know, the first mock-up, it really went pretty well considering I had never done a reversible type top. I wanted it to be line or double line, and I wasn't sure at first what I was going to do with it. Like, I keep going back and forth on this. I'm not really sure if it's too long or too short, but I typically wear pants that kind of sit here, so I think it'll be okay as far as that. I mean, I can always make a version that's longer and then see how I like that, and that could just be two different versions of it. Alright, so I have finalized the adjustments that I have made to the pattern pieces, the front and back. Now both of these are on the fold, so it ends up being one full piece. So I just transferred the markings as far as what I did for the new one, and then the newer one has a little bit of a shallower curve here on the side, and then it goes deeper into the front. Now with the back piece, I didn't go as far down as I did with the front, so we're gonna see kind of what difference that makes, because it does kind of sit roughly about there, I think. So we'll see how I like these changes. Hopefully it comes out perfectly. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure if the back is going to be any different, but I did end up like slimming down the sides just a little bit. It was probably maybe about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference as far as the final garment, but I just, when I was doing the curves, I just kind of decided to take that off. So now I'm going to get some fabric, and then we can kind of cut this out, do another mock-up of it, and hopefully end up with something kind of cute. Hopefully I don't mess up the orders of the steps, so I need to make sure that I sew the top and bottom first, and then I can sew up the sides. The first thing I'll do is add the straps in to the front and back, and then sew up the top and bottom, and then the sides, and then we'll see what we have from that. Now everything I have is actually cut on the fold, so that makes it a little easier. So these are going to be a lot thicker straps, but if you want to have your straps a little thinner, then you can always just take this piece and cut it as one whole piece and then fold it. But I want these to be pretty thick, so I will be folding them and then turning them right side out. So we'll end up having a piece like this, and then folding the straps in like that. Alright, I'm gonna cut off all these extra pieces. And if I remember correctly, this is 1 yard of fabric, so I have enough to do something with. Probably more something along the lines of a bra or a bathing suit top. So for my sewing machine, I am going to be putting it on 4, which is a lightning stitch. That's good for stretch fabrics. And I'm going to fold this so that the right sides are facing each other. And I want to make sure that I have about a 5/8 seam allowance. So I'm going to be lining it up with the guideline that's here so that it hits where I need it to. And another thing that I want to do is I want to go to the longest stitch length. That way I can just kind of go through the fabric quickly. Back stitch so that it holds it in place. And then we get the going. And then I back stitch at the end. Release the needle, cut off the edges. And I am going to serge this after I get done with the other one. Alright, so now that I have everything sewn and serged, I am going to be flipping it right side out. And since these are wide straps, they're pretty easy to do. So now that I have it actually right side out, I can do one of two things. I can sew it just like this with the seam on the side, and that'll make it easily reversible. But what I want to do is I want to place it towards the center. That way there's no seams on the front side of it. So once I get everything lined up on the back, I'm just going to press it into place. That way it just stays where I need it to. So now what I'm going to do is attach the straps to the back piece. There's no particular reason why I chose the back over the front. It's just the first piece I grabbed. So I just want to make sure, since this is double lined, it doesn't really matter which way I put the straps, as long as both of them are facing the same way. And just so you know, they are roughly about 1.5 inches from the center, so that means they're about 3 inches apart. Alright, let me put this top layer on and make sure that they are right sides together. And we're doing a 5/8 seam allowance on this as well, so I'm just lining everything up, making sure that it's in a good spot. And then I will back stitch and then sew. And now I'm going to be flipping this open, and I'll be doing the exact same thing to the front pieces. I just remembered I have to add the darts in there, so let me get those darts in the side, make sure that they line up where they're supposed to. Alright, so I have the front done, and what I've done with the front is I've gone all the way to the arm seam so that when I put these two pieces together, they will actually have enclosed casing. But everything came out pretty good. The alignment of the straps is perfect. There's no extra space in there. So what I'm going to do is serge the inside area. Alright, so I just need to serge all of this and trim it down so that it will all fit in there nicely. So what I'm going to do is go up this side, then go down this side, and then just trim that little area there. Oh yeah, it's looking good so far. Alright, so now what I am going to do is start sewing up the bottom of it. So to do the bottom, we're going to do a little bit of the burrito method. So we'll just roll up the back side and then bring the front sides together. Make sure those are lined up. And then we can sew that. Alright, I'm going to serge this edge as well as do the same thing for the other side. So right now I just have the front side done. So what I'm going to do is that opening that I have, I'm going to pull out the back side, flip the front side right side out, and then split this so that the front side will go inside of it. So I'm going to roll that up, put it inside, then we have it kind of looking like this, where I can pull this over the top, line those edges, and then sew that together. Alright, so I have all the front and the back seams done. What I'm going to do is kind of press these just so they stay in place. I can wait till the end, but definitely noticing that the seams are laying a lot better than they were before with the other version I did of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just making sure that everything's coming out straight so that when I sew this all together, the straps aren't twisted or anything. So I made sure that the straps weren't twisted here. When I had rolled everything up, they ended up like this. So I'm just making sure they're straight. And then I make sure that the right sides go to the right sides. So we're going to call this side left, and then we'll call this side right. So I need to make sure the right side of this fabric is facing the right side of this fabric. So let me twist it. So this one is going to be the left side. I'm going to slide that in there. Make sure I line up these seams here. And then I can pull the other side in. Make sure everything lines up, and then I can actually put some clips in there so they all sit together. And when I'm sewing up the sides, what I'm going to do is make sure I leave a gap about 1 to 2 inches on one side so that it will be able to be pulled right side out. All right, so we are at the point now where we can flip this right side together. So as you can see here, I left a little gap, and what I'm going to do is, instead of pulling from the middle of it, I'm going to pull from one of the sides. So it's going to be 3 layers of fabric on one side and 1 layer on the other, and then I'm just going to pull that through the hole, and then that'll turn everything right side up. Before I do that, I actually need to serge these edges. So let me do that real quick. So now I have that opening. I have the edges serged and made sure I skip the spot where I need to pull through. So just like before, we're going to make sure we have 1 fabric on one side and then 3 on the other, and then we can pull that through. All right, now we have it so that the right sides are out, and all you have to do is press and then sew that little hole closed, and it'll show up on both sides. So you just hand stitch, or you could just do a straight stitch on both sides, which I probably will do this time because last time I hand stitched it, and since it's just a tiny little part, I can get close to the edge and then just do a little zigzag stitch, and it'll close up both sides. Okay, oh, you are there. Looking for my scissors. Always losing them. Alright, now I can try this on and see how it came out. Alright, so we are about to get started on the next item, and I am going to show a little bit of my storage for my fabric. Right here I have all of my knits, and we're going to try to decide, or I'm going to try to decide on what fabric I want to use for this shirt. So let's start with this first bin. See what we got. I think I want to go with a solid color, and I would prefer it to be a light color, but I don't know how many light colors I have. This one doesn't have anything I can use. Let's see about this one. Ooh, this might be nice. It's like a mint colored kind of suede, faux suede. So that might be a good option. I'll pull this out and see if I have anything else I might want to do instead of that. So see if I have quite a bit of this purple. And it has like a little bit of a slight texture, so I'm going to take that one out and see. Oh, I do have this, which I've had for a while. This is a Marvel fabric, and I could use it for that. I felt like I wanted to use it for something else, but I'm not quite sure. But this still might work. Let's see. What else do I have? Oh, I have this beautiful purple color that I've been holding on to for a long time. And this is more of a performance fabric. I may be making more of these than I thought I would, because honestly, these are all pretty good options. But what are we going to use for this video? That is the question. See, and the last one I have, I do have quite a bit of this, which is kind of like a watercolor design. It has like flowers and stuff in it. That might be good too. Let's see. Oh, this is like so buttery soft, and it's a beautiful color too. Okay. All right, I guess I got a couple of options. Let's see if there's, okay. So I have quite a few options as far as what I can use. Question is, which one do I want to go with for today's video? So it looks like we got some greens, some blues, some purples, and then a rainbow color. Oh, this is going to be hard. I'm kind of feeling the purple, but I feel like I'm not going to be that into wearing that as much as I will be some of the other colors. So I'm going to put this up and save it for later. We'll see if I end up coming back to that. And then we can narrow it down to these. Let me see. Check the fabric of this. Okay, so this is like really lightweight and almost see-through. I think I'm going to save that for another day or another project. We do have this suede fabric, which is really lightweight and it's nice and soft. I feel like I might go towards this a little more. Either that or this one. This one's so soft. It's so stretchy too. And it's a little bit of a rib knit too. Like a really small rib knit. Ooh, this is a hard one. I think I'm going to try this one because I haven't done anything with a fabric like this. And this is the suede one. Though these are all like really good colors and fabrics that I could use, I think I'm going to go with that suede one because I like the way it feels. And if you don't like the way your clothing feels, what's the point, honestly? To kind of show you guys like what I have going on in here, I have these folded up onto cardstock. And then in the cardstock, after I folded them on the cardstock, I put them in here and they're 2 layers thick. So I find that to be like the best way for me to store all of this. But I like the fact that these had the mesh on the front so I could still see the fabric. And then like I've been just trying to make sure I keep everything kind of together. I'm trying to work through as much of this fabric as possible because I would like to get my fabric to be just in these 4 bins, and that way I can get rid of this top piece. But for now, I have so much fabric that that's not even possible. So I have them broken up into the knit fabrics are on the bottom because that's what I typically use the most, and then my woven fabrics are up top. But that's a little bit of how I have my fabric stored. Oh, I almost forgot to put these up. This, I definitely need to figure out something to do with this. I probably will do a dress. I think there's about 2 yards in here of this fabric. So it will need something soon. So now we've decided on our fabric. I'm going to get my pattern pieces together and then get everything cut out. So this is what the fabric looks like. And this is a little bit of the drape. So I think this will be a good option for that top. And then we'll get to see how that pattern works with this kind of fabric. All right, so now I have my pattern pieces laid out, pretty much smoothed out all the fabric. I'm going to be cutting everything out. I think I might try to cut everything so that it is just a little bit bigger. I'm probably just going to add maybe like anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, just so I can make sure that it actually fits me. So the things I won't be changing are probably going to be the neck hole and then the hem. I'm just going to bring it out a little bit on the sides just to make sure I will be able to fit into it. I think I'll leave this the same and I'll just add a little here, maybe a little here at the shoulders. So the shoulders and the sides, I'll leave the armhole, I think, the same, and add the 1/4 inch to the arm, the sleeve. So hopefully this goes as planned. All right, so I actually got everything cut out and there's plenty of fabric to do a whole nother shirt, or maybe even 2. I can do probably like a color block thing with this as well. So that's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna get this out the way and then we can start sewing everything together. I do have to change out my thread because I don't have the right color in there. I'm going to see what I have that's really close to it because I don't think I have the exact color, but we can get started. All right, so I went through my stash and these are going to be the colors that I'm going to go with. I'm going to go for gray for the serger, and since that won't necessarily be seen, I feel like that'll be the best option. It's relatively close to the color, and I mean, not relatively close, but to me, it color codes with it pretty well. And then I have this fabric. I only have 1 spool of this, and that's like the closest I could come to this fabric. So it'll be a little bit of a contrast and a bit darker, but I feel like this is going to be the closest to what I need. So I am going to go ahead and thread both my serger and my sewing machine. I need to get a bobbin for my sewing machine so that I can have the same color underneath. Unless I was lucky enough to already made one, which it actually looks like I have. So no needing to thread a new bobbin. So I have one and I can drop that in. All right, so my sewing machine has a drop-in bobbin, which I honestly prefer over the one that goes in through the front. Usually there'll be like an area right here where you can put it in. I just prefer this way because it's really simple. I just have to take with one piece, pull out the old one, drop in the new one, and then replace the plate, and we're good to go. All right, so the sewing machine is good and ready to go. Now let's get the serger. So with my serger, what I typically do is I take a pair of scissors and then I just cut off the thread close to the cone, and hopefully it doesn't unthread itself. This one did fall. And then I just tie off the new cones to it, and then we kind of do a little bit of serging to pull the threads all the way through the machine. I found that this is probably like one of the quickest ways to do it. The only thing I get annoyed by is just having to tie the knots on here, because sometimes they give me a little bit of trouble. Otherwise, it's like the simplest way to do it, unless you want to sit up there and rethread your whole machine. So, those. And as far as the knot that I use, it's just usually a square knot. That I found that is the easiest way to get through the needles. Any other knot, it'll be too big and get stuck and break, and then you'll just have to end up threading it yourself. So, and a square knot is very similar to what you would use to kind of like tie your shoe or something like that. I can't think of any other knots, but I mean any other things you would tie that knot for, but it's very similar to when like you're tying your shoe. And of course, while I'm doing this, I'm starting to realize how much I need to dust my machine. I've blown off the inside of it just the other day, but I need to get the outside of it. Now let's turn this bad boy on and hopefully get it threaded. Okay, so it looks like I've already had an issue because the thread is no longer looping here. Not that you can really see it. So it's no longer looping here. So right here it is looping and now it's stopped. So that means something has gone wrong inside of here. And it looks like this thread has gotten stuck, which I found it up here. So that I will have to rethread. But it's relatively easy. You just follow the markings on your serger and that'll get you to the right points. Let's bring you in a little bit closer. Hopefully I can show you what is actually going wrong here. Okay, so I'm not sure how well you can see this, but there are two threads coming down from the needle. They are actually underneath this plate. So what I'm going to do is just grab them and pull them out. I noticed that whenever I'm having serger issues, that's usually what's going on. So I'm just going to pull those out from underneath the plate, make sure they are aligned the way they're supposed to, and then I'm going to rethread everything else. So this one should actually go up through here. And then the one I'm having the issue with is this one right here. So I need to pull that thread back through, and then I can actually put the plate back on and start sewing, and it should be good to go. Let's not put that through the cutter. All right, now I can get my presser foot back on and get that back into place. Oh, might help if I put it on the right way. Thought something wasn't looking right. There we go. Now I'm just going to pull all the threads underneath the presser foot so that they can actually go to where they're supposed to go. And now we are back in action, so you can see that everything's kind of looping up the way it's supposed to. All right, and now everything is ready for me to actually start sewing. So I am going to get my my pieces together so that I can get the parts sewn together. All right, so I have my pieces and I have the right sides together. The first thing I want to do is sew up the shoulder pieces. So I want to get those aligned and get those sewn up. I am going to be using the lightning stitch, just the same as what I used for my other one, just because that works best for the knit fabrics. And this is also a 5/8 seam allowance. I'm going to use some clips just to hold everything in place because this fabric is really slippery, so I'm hoping that I don't have too much issue with it, but I might end up having to add some tissue paper to help guide it through the sewing machine. Alright, so now I am ready to add the sleeves in there, but I did realize that I forgot something. I forgot to get the band for the neck hole. So after I get these sewn together, I'm going to go cut that piece out, and then that'll be one of the last things I have to attach to this, and then it'll be just hemming everything. So let me get these sleeves attached. So these sleeves, they actually have little notches to help you align it. So make sure you're aligning the notches to the right sides. So this is the wrong piece. And got two front sides, and make sure they're right side facing each other. I'm going to use some clips to hold them in place so that it makes it a little easier for getting everything underneath the sewing machine. So another thing I had to do was switch out my needle. I switched it over to a Microtex needle. And I switched it over to that because it's better suited for this type of suede-like material. The last thing I have to do is I'm going to hem up the hem up the sleeves and the bottom, and then I will sew up the side seams. So I'll actually do it in the order where I hem this part, the sleeve, and then I will sew up this side, and then I will hem up the bottom of it. But those are the last few things I need to do. Alright, so now it is time to do the last one, and that is going to be the knee-length square neck dress. And I had to do some searching for this. I had found this picture, couldn't remember where I found it at, but I found a picture of the dress that I want to try to recreate. I'm going to make some tweaks to it, but essentially it's going to be the same thing. But I had such a hard time finding this, and I couldn't remember where I found it. And then I finally realized that I saw it on a TikTok video. And in that TikTok video, this girl, she was recreating her own version of it as well. So I want to do that. I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently than she is. I'm going to be using my mannequin, which is why I have it out. And we're going to do the pattern pieces. I'm going to make some slight adjustments because I'll be making it out of a knit fabric, and I'll be patterning it out of a woven. But everything should go pretty easily, and it'll be a quick sew. I'm actually going to use the same technique I used with the very first thing I made and make it so that it's somewhat of a like reversible kind of thing. I feel like that's just going to come out the best and the easiest, make it really quick, because all of the things I've sewn so far have been somewhere around 2 to 3 hours to make. And this should be no difference, but you never know. I am going to get started on patterning it, and I will bring you guys back in once I got that pattern kind of finalized. And then I'm going to kind of like straighten out the lines just to make sure that they sit the way I want them to. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I have gone ahead and made a mock-up using the pattern that I originally started with. And I ended up with this. Now, I could tell that it was going to be a little bit bigger than what I intended on doing, because I just followed the lines in and added 1/2 inch. So I took those 1/2 inch away from the pattern, and then I redrew it so that I have this now. So these are the 2 halves, and what I've done is I brought this part up in the front, and then I dropped the armhole down. I kept the width, and the length is still the same. And then I just made sure I matched up the same thing on the back. And then I also brought this part up just a little bit. So I believe I should be good to go as far as cutting out the pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and actually sew everything together. So I'm gonna be doing 2 layers with this, and hopefully we have something that works really well. For the pattern for, okay, so for this, I did notice that I did make the straps too long for that. I had a feeling that was going to happen regardless. So that's why I decided to do like this version of it so that I could see where I need to make those changes. So I just dropped this down. I made this shorter and the rest of it is still pretty much the same. I did slim down at the bottom here. That way it fits a little bit better. But I'm glad I did this before actually cutting it out in my final fabric because there was going to be some fit issues and I'm glad I went through that. And that way I won't have those same issues. All right, guys, so I have got both of my pieces cut out. So I have two of the back piece or front piece and then two of the back pieces or front pieces in this case. I am going to sew up the armhole, the neck hole, and then I'm going to sew up the bottom of this. And then we can start putting this thing together so that we have one solid piece. And before I get sewing, I want to double check that my seam allowance is right so that I can make sure that everything lines up the way it's supposed to. All right, so now that I have this sewn up for the front piece, I'm going to do the same for the back piece and then I'm going to serge all of these edges that I just did. All right, guys, so I have it sewn together and I have the front piece. I'm going to turn this right sides out and then I'm going to put it into the back side. So this is the front, this is the back. So I'm going to flip this right sides out. Make sure I pull the straps through. This might be a little bit harder because it's only an inch thick, but we'll get that going. All right, and now that I have that right sides out, I'm going to stick it into the back piece here. And we're going to make sure that the sides are matching up. And right now, since they're both the front piece, it doesn't matter which way I put it in. I just need to make sure that this side is on the same side with the back. All right, now that I have everything lined up there, I'm just going to sew the seam together, making sure that I keep that 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, guys, so I am ready to turn this right side out, and what I've done is left about a 2-inch hole so that I can pull everything right side out. I typically see everybody do this in the armhole, and I prefer doing it on the side seam because that way when I can flip it right side out, I can just sew over that hole and then you won't even know that it's there. And I don't have to do any hand stitching and it looks pretty good. I did that with that first item that I had, and to me that works out the best. I've seen a bunch of other videos where people were doing it in the armhole and I feel like that's a little more work than it needs to be. Yeah, you would only have to do up one hole, but I feel like just doing a stitch right over it is kind of like the best thing to do. So I'm going to flip this right side out and then close up that hole and the dress will be done, and then we can see like the final results of everything. All right, I wanted to give you a quick look at what that final seam looks like. So this is one side of it and then this is the other side. So it sews it up really nicely and then that's really in an inconspicuous spot. So there's the final dress. All right, guys, so I wanted to show you the final result. This is the first top, and I think everything came out really good. There's only one thing that I kind of noticed, and it's what you probably can see is the back here. What I did with that pattern piece, I made it a little bit smaller, and the curve didn't quite line up. So in the back, it's a little bit shorter, and it's a little bit less of a curve as the front. I think the front looks really good and the back looks good too, but I feel like I wanted to match the front a little more. So I think just on that pattern piece, I'm just going to have to go and make those changes on it. And that's really all that it needs. Like, this is one of the most comfortable tops I've ever like made and put on. So like it just came out even better than I thought it could. With this fabric, it's actually a little bit contouring, so it kind of holds everything in a little bit more. And with these black pants, it looks so good. So I really like the way everything came out for this. It's just I would need to adjust those pattern pieces so they kind of mimic each other in the front and back. But aside from that, everything looks good. So I just want to give you a quick like turn and so you can see everything in full. All right, so this is the second top that I made, and this came out really good. There are some like minor details that I really should have paid more attention to, and it's really just the armholes. I really should have just added that extra 1/4 of an inch that I added to the sides to that as well, because I feel like just in this area it feels a little bit tight when I'm like move forward and backwards. Aside from that, everything like fits pretty good. I think the only other thing I would do is make this just a little bit bigger and make this part like a little bit longer just so I can feel comfortable wearing it with anything. Aside from that, this is one of those items. It's like a basic item, so it's really easy to like sew together, and it's really easy to just add it into your wardrobe. You can do any color you want. You can do patterns, you can do just solids, and you can just have fun with this. But this is like one of those staples that I really wanted to add into my wardrobe. That way I can just wear it layered on with a bunch of different things, or if it's a hot day I can just put like a cute skirt, shorts, or something like that with it, and it just be like effortless. So I do like that this is kind of like a suede fabric. It gives it such a cool feel and a cool look. So like the light kind of hits it in slightly different ways depending on which way like the fibers are going. So I do like that. And I would definitely make another one of this, just making those adjustments, making sure that I add that space so that I don't feel like I'm being constricted in any kind of way. But it definitely came out like one of the best versions of this top. All right, and finally we have the dress. Now, this is how it finally came out, and I feel like this is like the perfect like summer dress. There are some things that I do kind of wish were like I made those adjustments. So the main one is right here. I feel like there's a little bit too much fabric there, and I'm not quite sure on what I could do. Or actually, I know what I can do is adjust that middle seam so that it's a little more kind of angled in a sense, so that there's less fabric here but everything else kind of stays the same, and that would just help with the way everything fits. Because if I kind of bring my arms together, you get that gaping and that dropping that happens. But the cool thing about this is since it's not only reversible, but it's like you can wear it either way. I can flip it to the back side and use that if I feel a little more comfortable with. So I'm going to switch that over just so you can kind of see what it looks like that way. All right, and this is what it looks like on the back. So I think that is really cool. Like I don't have to worry about the gaping because it doesn't happen. So yeah, this is the back or the front on the back. And I feel like this came out really good. So as far as everything goes, there's only like minor details that I really need to adjust for it, but as far as the way everything came out, I really enjoyed it. It's just like those minor things where things aren't quite matching up exactly how I want them to, but I know what I can do to make them better, and that way when I make more stuff, I can actually make those changes to it and it'll be pretty simple. Hey guys, so thank you for tuning in on this video. I know this was a bit of a long one and there was a lot of information in here, but I really enjoyed this whole process and I wanted you guys to kind of go along with me. I had no idea this was going to be this long. I thought I was kind of keeping it short, but there was just so much information that I wanted to bring to you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.